Picture yourself hungry enough that the forest no longer looks beautiful. It looks like a locked pantry. There's meat somewhere out there, maybe. But today, the hunters come back with nothing. So now your life depends on things you'd probably step over. Bitter nuts, swamp roots, cactus pads, cracked bones. That's the first thing you need to know. The real ancient diet wasn't steak and berries. It looked less like a menu and more like a toolkit for turning almost food into calories. Ancient humans didn't ask, would this look good on a plate? They asked, can we make this edible? And that question may have saved you, me, and everyone you've ever known. Start with a bone. To you, after dinner, it's trash. But to an ancient human, that bone had a secret locked inside it: fat. Around 2.6 million years ago, at places like Gona and Bori in Ethiopia, sharp stone flakes cut meat and opened bones. Even older marks from Turkana, about 3.39 million years ago, still spark arguments. But the obsession already shows up. Marrow mattered because it gave you dense energy in a world where energy kept vanishing. Here's the weird part. If you eat only lean meat, your body can get into trouble. Your liver can't safely turn endless protein into fuel. Past a point, protein stops helping and starts poisoning. People call this rabbit starvation because lean animals can fill your stomach while still starving your cells. So ancient people didn't just crave meat. They hunted fat, starch, sugar, and anything that could become energy. Now jump to Qesem Cave, near today's Tel Aviv. Imagine someone carrying deer leg bones back into the dark. They don't crack every bone right away. They keep some for later, like leftovers in a pantry. Experiments suggest marrow could stay useful for up to 9 weeks when bone kept skin and tissue attached. So one of the earliest pantries may not have held jars. It may have held bones. That changes the picture, doesn't it? These weren't cartoon cavemen gnawing randomly. They tracked time. They understood spoilage. They knew which parts of an animal could wait. Now put yourself beside a lake 780,000 years ago at Gesher Benot Ya'aqov in the Jordan Valley. People cooked carp-like fish there. Tiny fish teeth carried heat traces that match cooking, not accidental burning. But that same lakeshore also held something quieter: basalt pounding tools, dusted with ancient starch. Those starches came from acorns, grasses, legumes, water chestnuts, rhizomes, and lily bulbs. That's not caveman steak night. That's seasonal menu planning before agriculture, before pottery, before grocery stores. And some of those plants fought back. Acorns taste bitter because tannins make them hard to eat. So you don't just eat an acorn. You crack it, soak it, leach it, grind it, and teach someone else how. That's ancient food technology, not modern, but brilliant in the exact way hunger demands. Fire made this possible on a huge scale. At Wonderwork Cave, ash and burned bone point to fire about 1 million years ago. Fire didn't just warm hands. It softened roots, unlocked starch, killed some pathogens, and made chewing less exhausting. Right now, as you watch this, your body runs on calories that cooking helps humans access. At Border Cave in South Africa, people roasted hypoxis rhizomes up to 170,000 years ago. These underground stems don't look glamorous, but when meat disappears, a tough root can become life insurance. Think about a woman, let's call her Maya, walking back while the hunters carry nothing. Maya knows where tubers grow after rain, which fruits ripen first, and how long bitter foods need water. To you, that knowledge sounds like trivia. To her group, it means tonight has dinner. This matters because bones preserve better than plants. Archaeology can make the past look meatier than it felt. At Klassi's River, charred plant tissue shows people cooked starchy foods around 120,000 years ago, and again around 65,000. So if someone tells you Paleolithic humans didn't eat carbs, the hearths quietly disagree. Your own mouth hints at the same story. Humans carry copies of AMY1, a gene for starch-digesting saliva. Populations with long high-starch traditions often have more copies. Starch mattered enough to leave fingerprints in biology. Now go to the coast. At Pinnacle Point in South Africa, people collected shellfish about 164,000 years ago. Shellfish look easy only after someone teaches you tides, rocks, danger, and timing. A beach can feed you like a clock, but only if you know how to read it. Then there's the desert, where modern comfort really misleads you. At Heinz Cave in Texas, ancient poop shows prickly pear cactus seeds in 74% of studied samples. Cactus pads, Fruits, lizards, small animals, fibrous desert plants, not emergency gimmicks, but local expertise. To us, cactus and lizards sound like desperation. To them, it was knowing the neighborhood. And yes, sometimes ancient food gets much harder for modern stomachs to accept. Neanderthal bones often carry high nitrogen signals, which once made them look like pure super carnivores. But researchers tested a disturbing idea. What if some of that signal came from eating larvae in decaying meat? Fly larvae can show extremely high nitrogen values. In one study, maggots ranged from 5.4 to 43.2 per mil. That doesn't mean every Neanderthal ate maggots every day, but it makes your disgust feel historically fragile. In survival terms, larvae aren't garbage. They're soft little packets of fat and protein made by a carcass. Fermented and putrid animal foods also show up in many human traditions. Maybe someone else's preservation method. That's the big lesson. Disgust isn't universal. It has a landscape, a childhood, and a food supply. A supermarket teaches you to reject almost everything. A hungry ecosystem teaches you to test, process, and remember. Even bread, that soft symbol of farming, has a wilder backstory than you expect. At Shubeika 1 in Jordan, hunter-gatherers made bread like flatbreads about 14,400 years ago. That came roughly 4,000 years before agriculture in that region. So maybe farming didn't invent bread. Maybe people loved labor-intensive wild bread first, and that craving helped pull farming into existence. So the real paleo diet included grinding stones, leaching water, fire pits, storage bones, shell timing, and memory. It included foods that looked poisonous, useless, too hard, too bitter, too spiny, or too rotten. And humans survived by asking one more question after disgust said no. What if heat changes it? What if water removes the bitterness? What if stone opens the fat? What if time ferments it? What if drying saves it? What if the part we throw away is the prize? The open mystery is how much of this diet still stays invisible because soft foods disappear. Bones survive. Berries, roots, insects, cooked leaves, fermented scraps, and stomach contents usually don't. So the past may not show us what people ate most. It shows what lasted long enough for us to find. Next time you throw away a bone, avoid a bitter nut, or wrinkle your nose at an insect, remember this. Your ancestors didn't survive because nature handed them a perfect diet. They survived because they learned how to negotiate with nature, one strange food at a time. The real human superpower was not hunting mammoths. It was turning the inedible into dinner.